What if I told you that there was more to procrastination than most people think? Today we are breaking down why we procrastinate and sabotage our progress in our careers, in our relationships, and passion projects, and how we can change all that if we are open to the information. I didn't say affirmation, I said information. I do think most of us understand that procrastination is not just a mental issue, but a biological issue as well. Yes, there's a fear of not being in control, the fear of rejection, not being able to predict the outcome, all of which contributes to your procrastination. But additional reasons for your procrastination could be the size of your amygdala, or how your brain interprets the future version of yourself, and a whole lot more. In essence, your mind and body believes procrastination is justified. In fact, it's the preferred course of action. Why? Well, shit, I'm gonna have to make a whole video explain that. And if you have ADHD, I'm gonna have to make you a whole separate video. Example number one, research explains that the brain interprets your future self sort of like a stranger, making it easier to disregard your future self's needs, hence procrastination. Did you know that? I didn't, but I've experienced it. Here's another example. Raise your hand if you've heard yourself or somebody else say that they fear success. Well, science calls BS and says our procrastination is less about fearing success and more about the anxiety tied to what we might lose or gain while pursuing our desires. What? Now, this ain't bro science. Did anyone ever tell you that procrastinators tend to have a larger amygdala? That's part of our limbic system responsible for the flight or fight response. When we are in the face of uncertainty or change, this system can act like an amygdala hijacking and will usually play out in an emotional reaction of avoidance. It's a gang of studies confirming that the amygdala, our brain's fear center, lights up not just when we face immediate threats, but also when we anticipate major life changes, even positive ones. This explains why you might feel anxious on a date or asking for help on your idea, starting a new job or networking at a convention that could help your business. Let me tell you a personal story about what this type of procrastination looks like up close. One time I ran into Gabby Sidibe at a KFC in Miami. Y'all know the girl who played Precious in the movie Precious? Well, there she was, looking like a whole-size queen. All natural, perfect makeup, looking like she ain't perspired a day in her life. I ain't expect to see her in KFC considering she stole a bucket of chicken from him in the movie. We started talking, man, and it was so natural, like we'd known each other for ages. Dog, she even slid me a number. I was just supposed to be getting a two-piece and damn near left with the whole bucket, you heard me? Now, I should have been cool, but I let my insecurities take over. I had Gabby Sidibe's number locked in under Gabby the Baddie. Man, every time I looked at her number, I felt like the king of the hood. I started to call her that day, but then I thought, you know what? Let me wait till I get my next paycheck just in case we want to rendezvous. I got my paycheck, and then I was like, you know what? Let me just chill until I got some news worth bragging about, or when I feel like I'm on my A game. But every time I thought about hitting dial, my doubts would hit me even harder. I'd be like, why should she want to talk to me? I'm just a living at his mama house. Man, I'd be pacing back and forth in my room at night just overthinking shit. Occasionally, a spark of optimism would light me up a little bit. Like, she gave me a number, right? So maybe she sees something special in me that I don't see. But quicker than a hiccup, another wave of insecurities would just douse that spark. It's probably a fake number anyway. Days turned into weeks, then they stretched into months. Before I knew it, a whole year had blown by. And I kept telling myself, once I land something big, I could hit her up, and that would justify why it took me a whole year to call. But them big breaks were slower than Sunday service, and my confidence was slower than that. But here's the thing, fam. My procrastination wasn't really about her. It was really all about me. Growing up, being called stupid, feeling rejected and like a disappointment to my parents, left me feeling inadequate with these fears of being judged, rejected, and abandoned. So instead of being comfortable with myself as is and where I was in my own journey, I let my insecurities outshine my potential. Check it out. Subconsciously, I had decided that I needed to hold out for something, a status symbol that would make me feel more like Gabby Sidibe's equal. How crazy is that? My body was in on it too. We took a picture together that day and I was all slumped over looking like I had erectile dysfunction or some shit. When you are facing potential success, or in my case, a potential relationship, your system can flood with stress hormones like cortisol, triggering the flight or fight response. It's like your brain saying, hold up, we entering unknown territory here, and your body will actually take on certain physical postures to accommodate that mindset. You might stiffen up, slump your shoulders, tuck your proverbial tail, or you might stick your chest out, overcompensating the math mask your insecurities. And over time, this shit becomes your daily swag. So when you procrastinating on that big project or talking yourself out of an opportunity, it's not because you're afraid of winning. It's that your brain and body have been teaming up to help keep you obedient. They're trying to protect and shelter you like overly protective parents, trying to keep you in your comfort zone. Have you ever heard the saying, your comfort zone is where your dreams go to die? I also have a saying, your comfort zone is where the worst baby mamas was created. Pause. Look, fam, I don't know who need to hear this, but this is simple biology. Your brain is your bodyguard and it's wired to protect you. It's like having a security system that's always on the highest sensitivity setting. When you are faced with something new, whether it's success, a relationship, or even a big opportunity, your brain sees that shit as suspect. You heard? Again, it's not because your brain wants to work against you, it's because your brain is trying to keep you safe. If you struggle with procrastination, you've probably seen all these studies explaining how when you're about to step into something big, your brain releases cortisol, that stress hormone. This triggers your fight or flight response even if there is no actual danger. It's like your brain saying no homo after hearing your father say I love you for the first time. This is new territory. The brain is like, that's a clone, get mama in them, let's go, get mama in them. But your brain doesn't just react to immediate threats. It also reacts to anticipated threats. That's why you might feel anxious about that promotion or just saying hello to somebody in Starbucks or starting on a new project. Your brain is already imagining all the things that could go wrong. Rejection, failure, embarrassment. Instead of moving forward, you fall back. And when you fall back like that, you become the landing strip that enables procrastination to take flight. Pause. You may or may not be familiar with this term, but psychologists call this self-handicapping. It's like when you create obstacles for yourself. Procrastination, self-doubt, even acting out to avoid the possibility of failure. It's like saying, if I don't try, I can't fail. But here's the thing. If you don't try, you can't win either. Pause. Take my situation with Gabby Sidibe. My brain was already anticipating all the things that could go wrong. What if she thought I wasn't smart enough? What if I wasn't polished like our Hollywood friends? Or she thought I was just too hood or a nut too quick. So instead of staying in the moment, I let all them fears take over. I start talking myself out of it before I gave myself a chance. That's my default programming combined with my brain and body's need to protect my black ass from the so-called boogeyman. Probably one of the greatest awakenings of my life is realizing that I don't have to let my programming run the show. What? Yeah, you heard me. We don't have to let our cowardly brains run the show. We can condition the brain not to interpret unfamiliarity and uncertainty as a threat. We can actually override the brain's desire to avoid newness so that it interprets fresh possibilities as an opportunity worth embracing. And that is where we're going next.
By the way, hit the like button if you like something, and if you're motivated as hell, hit that notification bell.
What do you think happens when you let that fear of not being in control, the fear of rejection, or the fear of looking bad run your life? You start playing small, you play it safe, you become hyper-individualistic. You start trying to trick yourself into thinking being strong and independent is just as good as being united in purpose. Trust issues make you think in terms of terror, not teams. Boss, you surround yourself with needy, insufficient people, often submissive ones. This way, you get to be the 50 Cent of G-Unit. You get to be the Jay-Z of Rockefeller. You get to be the Diddler of Bad Boy. The Diddy of Baddie Boy. Shit, y'all know what I'm trying to say. So when you and your brain end up choosing for yourself is 100% control of a familiar nothing over having 10% control of a much bigger, more fulfilling life and network. We are wired to be so scared of not being in control that we would rather be the smartest person standing in line at the soup kitchen than the student at the billionaire brunch. If you are unsure of how this is all connected, make no mistake, all of the above are forms of procrastination. Number one, over-preparation, spending a bunch of time planning and never actually getting started. Number two, perfectionism, obsessing over minor details, still getting nothing done. Number three, busy work, blowing your time on things that don't move you closer to your goals. Number four, decision avoidance, postponing important decisions to focus on less critical shit. Number five, self-criticism, which only leads to more paralysis, more avoidance. Number six, one of my favorites, novelty seeking, always starting new projects and never seeing one through. Number seven, discomfort avoidance, putting off tasks that make you uncomfortable, even if they are important for your growth. Number eight is a big one, crisis creation, waiting until the last minute to create this sense of urgency which you think enhances your performance. Number nine, lack of goal setting, failing to create clear objectives, which makes it easier to just go drifting astray. And number 10, the age-old hood favorite, excessive critiquing of others, focusing on everybody else's shortcomings instead of focusing on the areas in which you need growth and improvement. Don't kid yourself, those are all forms of procrastination. And remember I said that for procrastinators, it's not just a mental issue, but it's a biological issue as well. Get this, when we procrastinate, we activate the brain's reward system through dopamine release. So you get a little temporary relief from the stress or discomfort you felt while anticipating or facing a new challenge. And that reward, that little dose of dopamine, reinforces avoidance behavior in the face of uncertainty. In other words, the brain takes a big old bong hit after it convinces you to abort the mission. Researchers call this chronic self-sabotage. It's when you repeatedly make choices that hold you back even though you know it's not in your best interest. And over time, that becomes a subconscious habit, a pattern that you don't even realize you are stuck in. You get your little Scooby snack for cooperating with the overly protective parent in your brain, and then you get to go lay down in your room. That wasn't a one-time thing. I've done it in so many other areas of my life. One time I had a chance to do this huge speaking gig with Tony Goggins and them, but I turned it down because I didn't think I was smart enough to hold my own on stage. Yeah, I said Tony Goggins. You ain't never heard of him, but he big in his hometown. I kept making excuses because I was scared of what people might think. Well, how many times have I dated down to avoid the accountability of dating up? Here's the kicker. Every time you succumb to that default programming, you ain't doing nothing but reinforcing it. Your brain goes, see, I told you that shit was dangerous. I'm glad we let it go, bro. And then it gets even harder to step out of your comfort zone the next time. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You so scared to fail, you don't even try, and then you fail by default. Procrastination 2.0. But here's some good news. You can break the cycle of procrastination. You can train your brain to see success as an opportunity, not a threat. And that's exactly what we're talking about next. So how do you procrastinate less in life? Well, it starts with realizing that success is not about being in control, but about being in alignment with your purpose. It's about embracing vulnerability and seeing it as a strength, not a weakness. One powerful tool is mindfulness training, which I stand on like business in my group coaching. For me, sitting still, undistracted, looking at nature, looking at the ocean, looking at the sky for a couple of hours, or even better, sun up to sundown, demonstrates to every cell in my body that I know how to make myself the priority. Most people in the world have never even experienced being made to feel like the priority, not even by their parents. But this practice alone has shifted how I interpret what I'm deserving of. Another key strategy for me is cognitive restructuring. That's about acknowledging and addressing the negative thought patterns that hold you back. I like to think of it as thought inventory. When I catch myself thinking something limiting, I ask myself, is this thought helpful or hurtful? What evidence do I have to substantiate? Then I like to ask, whose standard am I grading myself by anyway? That series of questions helps me reframe my thoughts and focus on what really matters. Then there's visualization exercises, also crucial. I visualize myself going in like forceps when thinking of new challenges. Before a big meeting, a big coaching call, or a date, I like to sit still and close my eyes and imagine myself just having fun. I try to eliminate any need for status or ego. I try to visualize myself just being comfortable and articulate, not necessarily being idolized or looked at as the big man on campus. I really try to see myself as allowing myself to just be. Doing that just helps me to reframe my premature perceptions so that I can create new neural pathways that support positive shit, positive outlooks on success and change, while at the same time taking the pressure off by neutralizing these unrealistic expectations I have. Incremental exposure. By deliberately stepping in and getting my feet wet, no matter how scared I am, I build resistance. And I also normalize the process a little bit, but that's also where I build insight on how to play the game, how to navigate this new world. You gotta think of it like sleeping with the elderly. You know how you just kind of go slow a little bit at a time, make sure she ain't gonna die on you before you get to twisting up and knocking the cobwebs out that ass. I started using these techniques back in 1996 and I saw change immediately. The version of me that needed to see myself as the victim had officially left the building. Boss, I became less defensive. I stopped interpreting a risk as a threat, not just in my career, but in my relationships too. Don't try to be perfect, just be willing to try. Willing to embrace failure, willing to embrace mistakes, and use them as stepping stones. You ain't failing, dog. You just figuring out what don't work for you, boss. It ain't really about being smart. It's about being adaptive to change. Think of it as a mindset and a biological programming that needs to be reset from time to time. And once you start seeing it through that lens, you realize the fear is gonna be there no matter what. The key is to act regardless, and it's through that practice that the brain learns to play along. Because you're gonna either live facing your fears or you're gonna die tasting your tears. Boss. And here's the truth about Gabby Sidibe. She went on to marry Brandon Frankel. And he a real one too. She went on to have twins for old dude, and I can pretty much guarantee they ain't thinking about my ass. I liked it when she played Precious in anyway. But the truth is, life go on like boy band reunions. You either fill the space or get replaced. Pause. Now that you understand the psychology and biology of procrastination, you can better understand this video on how waiting on confidence ruins your potential and what you need to do about it. And if you are serious about turning your rough upbringing into your unfair advantage, check out my free coaching. Link is in the description.